Hey there, K-Korner family. It's your host, Crown, back with another set of wild and unbelievable stories that are sure to leave you scratching your head, laughing out loud. From parking wars to lawn invaders, today's tales are all about those everyday conflicts that just take a turn into the absurd. So grab your favorite snack, sit back, and let's dive into the world of neighborly shenanigans and family drama. Are you ready? Let's roll. This incident happened in the summer of 2018. I took a small part, but the real star was my landlord. It's common in my country to have apartment buildings next to houses, yard and all. I live in one such building. It has 10 apartments, 2 on each of the first 4 floors, 1 in the ground floor and 1 in the top floor. The top floor is used by the landlord when he and his family come for vacations. He lives abroad. The rest are rentals. We also have a small backyard with a side entrance, important for later. Next to the building is an empty lot, also belonging to the landlord. We use it as a private parking space, with signs visibly saying it's private. It takes 10 cars, 1 per apartment, and has a side entrance. Also, I was the longest tenant, so I was a superintendent. My job was to be the liaison between the tenants and the landlord and communicate any problems and concerns to him. The problem started when the house across the street from us was sold. A lovely old lady used to live there, but when she passed away, the house fell into disarray, especially the large yard. The new owners were Ken and Karen, fake names, but lived up to the meme. They immediately began major renovations, which was acceptable, but they also started to park their cars in our 2 empty spots. 1 for the landlord and 1 for the lady in the ground floor that didn't own a car. At first, we would tell them they were reserved spots and they would move their cars. But when they noticed the spots remained empty, they parked there permanently. I had notified the landlord and he told me to take pictures, log every incident and always notify the police. We started doing that every day. Ken is a hotshot local businessman and every time we called the police, would cause a scene about us being jerks. He always got a fine, but he very blatantly proclaims he will not pay. The worst part came about a month before the landlord's annual visit. They stopped using one of their cars and left it permanently in front of the side entrance, blocking it. That was a huge issue. You see, the lady living in the ground floor is a renal dialysis patient and 3 times a week goes for a session in a local hospital. The ambulance brings her back and usually parks next to the side entrance because she's exhausted after a session. With Karen's car parked there, that wasn't doable anymore. They don't move it even when the police are called. I notify the landlord and try to stop our own hothead from doing anything foolish. The calmer thing he proposed was slashing their tires. Finally, our landlord arrives. I hand him the photos and the logs and he calls Ken over. Tony, the landlord, calmly explains that they are not allowed to park in our space and to move the cars. Ken's response was, "Who the hell do you think you are? I can park anywhere I want." Now Ken thinks of himself as a big fish in our small town. But Tony is a big fish in a major foreign city, and he's very creative when somebody pisses him off. He tells us to leave the spot next to the side entrance open for the weekend and he will take care of things. We do that and Kim parks his car next to his wife's. Sunday evening, a tow truck arrives and unloads an old Citroen DS, also known as the Frog, blocking both of their cars. Monday morning, I wake by the buzzer and when I go downstairs, Ken and Karen are there. They are both livid. They can't move either car. Tony joins me, all smiles. Ken sees him and blows a gasket. He starts shouting and cursing. Tony, still smiling, replies, "I don't see a problem here. My car is legally parked. What are you going to do about it?" Ken angrily gets into his car and reverse on the DS, crushing them both. Tony's smile became one of a shark. He immediately called the police and he pressed charges against Ken. The aftermath? Tony had legally bought the DS from his cousin that owns a car repair and restoration shop. The car was a restoration project and was insured. The court found Ken liable for the damage done. They also found that he was true to his word and hadn't paid any of the tickets. The fines for the tickets alone were almost 2,000 euros, and he also leased both his cars, and they dropped him as a client immediately for purposefully causing an accident and damaging the leased car. They are sued for damages. Ken got another car, but learned his lesson and hasn't parked in our spots ever since. Ever had one of those neighbors who seem to live in their own world of rules? Well, I had one, and let me tell you, it was an experience I will never forget. I'm a graphic designer who works from home in a quiet suburb. My life was pretty uneventful until a new neighbor moved in next door. She particularly was a piece of work. She had a sense of entitlement that could rival royalty. This story is about the day she decided my front lawn was her new kingdom. It was a sunny Saturday morning and I was enjoying my coffee on a porch when our Karen marched over with her two kids in tow. I knew something was up because she had that look. You know, the one where they have already decided you're wrong before they even start talking? Yeah, that one. I need to talk to you about your lawn, she said, her voice laced with an air of superiority. Oh, is there a problem? I asked, puzzled. Yes, there is. My children need a place to play, and your lawn is perfect for that. You don't use it much anyway, she declared. I was taken aback. I'm sorry, but that's my private property. Your kids can't just play here. That's when her demeanor shifted from entitled to outright demanding. Listen, you're going to let my kids play here, or I will have to call the cops. You're depriving children of play space. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Call the cops? For what? For being a selfish neighbor, she snapped. The conversation was getting nowhere, so I tried to end it. I'm sorry, but the answer is no. She huffed. We'll see about that. And stormed off. I thought that was the end of it, but boy was I wrong. Later that day I heard a commotion outside. She was back, this time with her kids running around my lawn and herself comfortably seated on my porch swing. I walked out trying to remain calm. Hey, I've already told you this is not okay. She smirked. I don't see any harm. Besides, I called the cops. They will sort this out. True to her word, the police car pulled up shortly after. Two officers stepped out, looking bewildered at the scene before them. Is there a problem here? One of them asked. Before I could respond, she burst out, Yes, officer. This man is harassing me and my children. We're just using his lawn and he's being unreasonable. The officers looked at me for an explanation. I explained the situation, emphasizing that I never gave permission for her or her kids to use my property. The officers turned to her. Ma'am, you can't use someone's property without their permission. You'll need to leave. That's when she lost it. She started yelling, accusing everyone of ganging up on her. As the officers tried to escort her off my property, she swung at one of them. It was chaos. The kids were crying, Karen was resisting arrest, and I was just standing there shocked at what's happening. In the end, they handcuffed her and took her away. From that day on, I made sure to put up a no trespassing sign on my lawn. You know, just in case. My mom married her husband when I, 28 female, was 16. I met him that same year and only lived in the same house as him for a little over a year before I moved out to go to college. I never saw him as a father figure, never saw him as a stepdad, meaning not a parent. I get along with him fine and he's a nice guy, but that's about it. My brother, 30 male, never lived with him. My brother got married in 2019 and my mom walked him down the aisle opposite his wife and her parents. Mom's husband was waiting for mom in their seats and he did not include her husband in the wedding as a parent because he wasn't one to my brother. This is something that upset mom's husband, and I only learned this a few months ago when I got engaged. How I learned this is my mom and her husband mentioned that he was hoping I would ask him or both of them to walk me down the aisle. I chose to ask my paternal granny. I chose not to ask mom because she and I had a less close relationship than she and my brother did growing up. My granny is the person who gave me the support I needed. My mom's husband told me it had really hurt to be publicly declared not a parent or parent figure when he has always thought of us as his kids in some way. I asked him if a special dance with mom or walking down the aisle with mom would make him feel better, and he said no. He said he didn't want to be just something to mom, but to be publicly acknowledged as a father figure. I told him he's not a father figure to me, and I'm sorry that he wants to be, but it's not how I see him. I asked him if there was something else he would like to do, and he said he wanted to walk me down the aisle or perform a father/daughter dance. I told him neither of those were an option, but if he wanted to do something else, we could discuss it. He and mom both mentioned it over the last few months, and now my wedding is closing in on us, and my mom told me I should have given him an actual role as a parent of the bride. She said it's breaking his heart to know he only gets to be her husband and not a fatherly figure. She asked me if they paid for the wedding, if I would change my mind, and I said no. Have to contribute to the wedding for him to get the role as father of the bride, and I told her no amount. He then asked me why I didn't want him to fill the role when he's the only father figure I ever knew. My dad died when I was 2. When I spoke to him, he told me that I was just being cruel and to have both of us reject him at the father figure's tongue. Am I the jerk? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, not the jerk. I hate to be blunt, but he was not a parental figure, especially with your brother, who was already out of the house and never lived with your mom's husband. And you were already grown enough to not need parental support from him as you were heading off to college. I feel like maybe he has grown to have some great expectations when it comes to the position he has in your lives, which is not your fault. Maybe your mother could have insinuated how important he is to you kids, hoping that you would see her husband as a father figure one day. Must have been something that hyped him up to think that he would be the person you guys chose to be father of the bride. I could say speaking with your mother and her husband about this and having an open and honest conversation so that you can be upfront about where you're at. But I also don't see their stance changing very much, and it's just going to put pressure on you even more. So I think you should do what you want to do. It is your wedding. You have the right to have someone you love and care about walk you down the aisle. You shouldn't feel guilty for choosing who you choose. Also, congratulations. Another commenter goes with, not the jerk. If he was asking to do a reading or something like that, sure, I could understand. But he's being over the top here. Not that it matters for this, but I'm just wondering, did he pay for your college or help your mom pay? Did they both gift you a big car or down payment on a home or something? I don't think that would change my mind. But at least I could understand his feeling of being a parent to you at that point. Third commenter goes with, not the jerk. Your wedding. They are the ones not articulating needs or suggestions. They are making you do the lifting. You made an offer, they said no, and provided no supportive counter-offer. They want recognition, but they are not even throwing you a bone. Back in the heyday of a fiber company with a letter V in their name, they were jamming fiber into the ground as fast as they could. They came to our townhouse village. We got a notice that they would be starting the next Monday and that they would be going along the inside edge of the sidewalks to set primary fibers, and if we wanted it to come to the house to paste this orange sign on our front doors. Okay, I was happy with the current provider, so no orange for me. Parking is tight with spaces for residents marked and some visitors marked as well. I was surprised to come home on Friday to see a ditch witch cable digging/insertion machine across the 3 spaces my family normally used. I said to the workmen that they were in my spaces, and they were across them. Why not move to the visitor spot, next spot over, and rather than being across them, just put the machine in a spot like it was a car. That way, it would take 1 spot, not 3. Digger guy goes, I already said it there. I have other work, you can sort out the parking. And he drove off. Okay, fine, so I park my car as close as I can to get to the machine, using the visitor spot. When the next car arrives, we place it as close to the machine in the space on the other side. Next car goes across the 3 spaces parallel to the machine. This plugs it in on 3 sides. Can't get at the force since there are the concrete bumpers, plus lack of wiggle room. Others make alternate plans to get to work, so I stay home to watch the action. Digger guy shows up, sees that he's plugged in and is very sad. Stomps around the digger, around the cars, around the digger, another pass around the cars. They go to the first townhouse, no answer. Second, third, fourth, all at work. They then get to me. Those are your cars? Yep, parked in my spot. You need to move them. Nope, busy with other work. And I close the door. Bang, bang, bang. You can't block me in. You can't park there. I can park there and look at them. I already did. You said for me to sort my parking out on Friday and I did. I'm going to call the police. Go for it. And I close the door. About an hour passed and there is a knock at the door. I'm the site engineer for the company with V in their name. Are those cars yours? Yep. You need to move them. Nope. When your work drone dropped the machine off, I suggested rather than take up 3 spaces, they take up 1. They said I should sort my own parking out. And I did. And I have other work to do. So I closed the door. More knocking that I ignored. By now there is a crowd of work people milling around. Another hour passes. New knocking. I'm the senior project engineer for the company with V in their name. Are those cars yours? Yep. You need to move them. Nope. When your work drone dropped the machine off, I suggested rather than take up 3 spaces, they take up 1. They said I should sort my own parking out, and I did. And I have other work to do. We will call the police. You do that. Close the door. While finishing lunch, knock at the door. This is the police. Open up and ask how I can help. Get told by Officer Obi to move my car or they will be towed. I pointed to the private property sign and said, this is a private parking lot. You don't have jurisdiction. In fact, When we have complained about issues, your chief has said you don't have jurisdiction, so you can't call the tow. You need to deal with the homeowners association. Some splutter about the officer but acknowledge they don't have jurisdiction to call a tow and leave. Late afternoon knock at the door. Hey Kelted, this is a member of the HOA. I open up and we go out. I explain the situation to them. HOA yells at people from the company that has V in their name, and the company people look sad. An HOA member asked how we can solve this. I go, well, illegal parking is a $100 fine and they are across 3 spaces, so that would be a $300 fine. They pay that and we can call it a day. Winking at the HOA member. That works, I will fine you $300 per day. Senior engineer with a company with V in their name goes, okay, we will pay it, move the cars. I go, they look like they will pull a runner on you. I get payment first. Good idea, you can pay me the fine since I'm the HOA. I can get you a check today. When you get the check, you can start. Otherwise, there is a bank down the street. Cash will work. Senior engineer slinks away. The HOA member and I chat outside while worker drones mill around. Senior engineer returns, hands cash to the HOA member and goes, okay, now move your cars. I comply by putting cars in other slots, and when I come back from moving the last car, I see the digger parked in the visitor spot, correctly, like a car. What was that, HOA member? Well, they decided that they had wasted the entire day and would start again tomorrow. They came and did the wires the next 3 days, each day the digger was returned to its spot. Oddly, I never saw the guy that wanted me to sort my own parking out again. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for joining me here at K-Korner. I hope these stories brought some smiles, a few gasps, and maybe even a nod of understanding. Life sure has its moments, doesn't it? Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. So don't be shy. Until next time, keep smiling, stay out of trouble, and remember, sometimes the craziest stories are the ones that happen right next door. See you in the next video.